Medic is often the most influential class in any given TF2 match. There's a reason most big pushes revolve around either successful Ubers or Medic picks, but with great power comes great feeding potential. It's a double-edged sword being that Medic player. On one side, you're the primary target. All the good players on the enemy team will be gunning for you. Add on Medic's general lack of offensive options, and the enemies can punish any slight mistake you make. But on the other edge, as the team's Medic, you have much more control over the game's general flow than any other class based on who you decide to heal and ubercharge. And while Medic's impact on the game is most notable through those big Uber pushes, his influence on matches extends far beyond that. A decent Medic will almost always heal more damage than the best damage class in the server is able to dish out, sometimes with the exception of players being pocketed by a Kritzkrieg. Take this game for example. I was able to heal for about the same amount of health as their top 3 damaging players combined, essentially nullifying them in terms of gross team damage output. On top of that, I was using the Vaccinator, so who knows how much more damage I additionally canceled out through the bubbles. As a result of this power, how you and the other medics play will usually decide which team wins and who carries that L. Why do you think so many people queue up and duo medic plus a power class to carry games? It's much easier to take over matches as a medic with some coordination and a decent damage class than any 2 damage classes working together. A pocketed power class is almost impossible to beat in a 2v1 or 2v2 unless another medic is involved. Yeah, stopping with the duo sure is a fun and chill way to win casual more often than not in TF2, but my favorite plays on Medic are always the ones where I'm pocketing some random free-to-play. Watching a new player who probably hasn't ever made a big play in his life stave off the enemy's advancements or kill 1,000-hour players is the funniest shit, and it's only possible on Medic because he gives his team such an unfair advantage just by existing. Heals, overheals, and ubercharges can more than make up for a skill gap between 2 DPS players, and the extent of that unfair advantage depends solely on how well you play as that doctor. When I manage to pop off, give a new player the feed they need, and turn them from lead into gold to come out victorious, it makes for the fattest plays and biggest dopamine hits. I'm constantly chasing that high. Today, I'm here to tell you that as a medic, you aren't just the team's healer. Sometimes you have to be the team's magician. See that Gibbous Heavy? That's not a bad player. That's an opportunity. I know I can count on this guy to brainlessly push the cart out of all the players here on this pier map. So keep him alive long enough and he just might get that bomb up the hill. So I try to make a little magic happen. And look how happy he is after the game. You think this player has ever top scored by that much before? You know he's grabbing a screenshot. Perhaps this tiny taste of what he can become will bloom into something greater, and in a few months it will be Pippa Lucas carrying us out there. Yes, I know playing medic with an awful team can be very annoying. Trust me, I've been there. But I'm tired of seeing medic players constantly complain about bad teams and unwinnable games. In my opinion, it's usually much easier to carry a match with medic than any other class in casual. Of course, I'm not saying you should be able to carry every game. We all know how hit and miss TF2's matchmaking is. Some games actually are going to be unwinnable. I've seen the saying repeated before that a medic is only as good as his teammates. Nah, chief. I think a team is only as good as their medic. So how do you become good enough at medic that you can make up that differential between DPS players when you get stuck on a losing team? Well, the secret sauce is having the right mindset and playing the game a lot. Sorry if you were expecting some massive revelation, but the answer really is just get better. As you play, think for yourself and don't take what I or any other player says as gospel. My strategies and opinions may not be optimal or work the best for your particular playstyle, and you have to figure that out for yourself. You need to test your limits and take risks. Go for the play that might not work and see what happens. Figure out what medic is capable of and the bullshit you can or can't get away with. If a play doesn't pan out, think about what you could have done better. Was it your team's fault or did you choke to death out there? Trick question. It's always your fault, dumbass, because nobody ever plays completely perfect. And even if you did somehow play perfectly and still died, why were you still around? The play was obviously never going to work out if even your godlike skills couldn't salvage it, so you should have been long gone. Sure, a lot of medic plays do hinge on your teammates actually hitting their shots, but knowing when to put your trust in some rando teammate and when to bail is a skill all its own that you can improve at. If you do feel the need to flame your team after an alarming lack of skill to vent some frustration and keep your mental intact, go for it. Just don't actually do it in voice or team chat. It's never productive. And never let toxicity get in the way of improving. Every botched play is a learning opportunity. Every time you die, think back on your life. How did you play? Was your death due to a mechanical error, a missed shot, or whiffed melee? Or was your positioning off, causing you to get caught out? Did you not check for spies as often as you should have? Did you walk into a common sniper sightline when you didn't need to? These are the questions you need to be asking and answering to improve. Look at this death right here. The initial play was pretty fat, but I just couldn't react to the random crit and pop a blast bubble in time. That's a mechanical error that can be ironed out just by playing more. In contrast, here I run out thinking my Bobby would just mow down the enemy heavy on the right, but he instead decided to go for the funny fist kill on the sniper. I could have flamed him, but this is actually a positioning mistake on my part. If I simply stayed in the tunnel, I would have been able to stay away from that heavy easily. By analyzing every death, you start to focus on improvement over dubs, and you begin to realize where your strengths and weaknesses lie. If you played horrendously but still win the game, you should still feel like you shit the bet. And if you popped off but still lost, don't let it get to you. As a small side note, if you're really focused on improving at medic, I highly recommend playing solo if you usually party up. Playing with buddies is great fun, but they also do a fantastic job of covering up your flaws in decision making or positioning, since you can often follow them around and rely on them to protect you. Any cracks in your playstyle will become much more apparent and easier to practice fixing when playing alone. One game might have a dangerous spy on the enemy team that will allow you to hone your awareness. Another match may have a great roaming soldier or scout that forces you to position more conservatively. I know that I've become a much better player over the last few months since I started playing way more solo queue. And just to be clear with this video, I'm not saying that I'm the greatest medic ever, far from it. I also have pretty much no competitive experience, at least in TF2, but I usually do very well in casual, and this mentality really does seem to always result in rapid improvement for me in any game I play. Plus, I still often die in stupid ways when I play nowadays because I've learned to start playing for content. If a play has a 5% chance of succeeding, but it would make a fantastic clip if pulled off, I'm gonna rip that shit every time because I need as many clips as possible for these videos. So that's it for the general mentality section of this video, but stay tuned because the next part is focused on the 2 medic weapons that go above and beyond when it comes to casual carry potential. Look, I know some people love their overdoses and Blutsaugers because of the extra offensive capabilities they offer, but the crossbow is the one must-have key to becoming that magical medic. If you really want to carry in clutch situations, you cannot always be a beam Brandon. Sometimes you have to live a little and put it all on the bolt. The Crusader's crossbow offers so much utility, it just can't be passed up. A little math for you. Switching to crossbow, shooting a bolt, changing back, and reattaching your metabeam takes about 1.5 seconds. At the 24 HP per second heal rate of all metaguns except the quick fix, you are giving up 36 health for a minimum of 75, more than doubling your healing output as long as you don't miss. And if you're positioned a bit farther back, the healing increase is even greater as your shots start hitting for 100 plus health. Just watch this shit, man. Because of these crossbow shots on this heavy, we were able to stuff the enemy's quick fix pop. Beam wouldn't have been nearly enough healing in this scenario, and I would have had to be much closer to the heavy and probably would have been run over by the pyro. Just remember to always congratulate your players for the great play they just made, even if we all know it wasn't really their play. Nice job, heavy. I can confidently say that a play as impactful as killing the enemy during their quick fix pop is nigh impossible on any syringe gun. The crossbow is just in another league of weapons. I hate to say it because the syringe guns can be fun, and if you don't want to go full carry mode, knock yourself out. But if you ever feel like you actually need a syringe gun to defend yourself, you should probably just work on your positioning and awareness instead. While it's definitely possible to carry on any metagun, I sure hope people aren't tired of Vaccinator propaganda because there's no better weapon when it comes to elevating a bad team. It makes sense. The Vaccinator gives the medic more agency and control over a situation than any of the other metaguns. It also helps that the Vaccinator is straight busted. Vac really is god tier when it comes to casual, since its only proper counter is coordination and focus fire. The downside is the number of decisions you need to make and your awareness must be much higher. But this is a small price to pay, since combined with the crossbow, you can make pretty much anyone immortal as long as you have bubbles. And if you aren't subbed yet, sign up because I'm gonna make a video where I go into much more detail on Vaccinator and crossbow technology soon. The amount of feed the Vaccinator provides is unparalleled. You just have to choose the proper recipient for the scenario. For sentries, you probably want to juice up a demo or soldier. Scouts, on the other hand, can make running down enemies trivially easy on the back end of a one fight. Pyros when you want to start some shit or you're just fighting another vaccinator. You can give snipers a free peek on the enemy Australians with a bullet bubble. Heavies are usually the best choice when you need to take or defend an objective, since their massive health pool scales the highest with damage reduction, and it's usually much easier to slam them with some crossbow shots due to their limited mobility. Factor in the insanely high amount of survivability the vaccinator gives to the medic himself, and it's easy to see why so many people hate fighting this monstrosity. It's just not fun. And unlike the other metaguns, you aren't making a mistake if you have to panic pop some bubbles when an enemy unexpectedly jumps you. Soldiers just cannot bomb you as long as you have a blast bubble ready. And flanking scouts or pyros should be dead as a doornail by the time your 2.5-second bubbles run out. Seriously, if you haven't experienced the magical feeling of popping all the right bubbles, hitting your crossbow shots, and keeping that teammate ticking against a hurricane of damage with the vaccinator, please equip it and get to work. In my opinion, it's far more rewarding than any other metagun. Plus, you can get some hilarious reactions from players when you manage to keep them alive through what they see as impossible odds. Most medics don't use it, so a lot of players aren't accustomed to the juice up. Look at this guy. He doesn't know how he didn't die there and certainly has no idea what to do now. With enough gas up, with enough fuel in the tank as it were, any player, and I mean any player, can win a fight. Look at this pyro. Do you really think he's the better player in this scenario? Does he really deserve to win this engagement? Of course he does, because he refused to fear the crits heavy, and I was there to give him the health he needed. Lastly, I just have one more clip to share because of some of the funniest shit that's happened to me in this game. I didn't feel like playing Vaccinator anymore, so I switched up to Huntsman, walked out of spawn, and railed this scout in the head. He immediately typed this in chat. That's the moment I knew I made it with the Vaccinator. So if you join a game of casual and there isn't already a healer on your team, go for it and start your medical journey. I can almost guarantee that just by playing medic, you will have a much larger positive impact on the game than picking any damage class, even if you don't think you're a medic player. Trust me, unless you're a pro, you likely aren't that good at your main damage class, and medic isn't exactly a challenging class to play in terms of skill floor. So play some medic when nobody else will and collect your free Ws. And at the end of the day, TF2 is just a video game that's meant to be played for enjoyment. So if you don't find micromanaging your decision making or constantly analyzing your play fun, and you would rather just play, then disregard everything I just said in this video. Personally, it just so happens that I get the most enjoyment out of making the best plays I possibly can in multiplayer games, so I'm always aspiring to get better. Oh, my children. Happy no. Hey, Pyro. Hey, Pyro. Hey, Pyro. We taunt on him. I love this guy.